Now, this is a video specifically related to listening to your heart, and it's my feeling that it's much better for you to listen to your heart, to learn to listen to your heart, than it is to listen to astrology. Now, this is coming from an astrologer. This is coming from someone who spent nearly 2 decades studying astrology, almost a decade now, a little bit more, practicing astrology professionally and teaching astrology. But before I got into astrology, and aside from astrology, I've always been interested in things like meditation and yoga. And I find astrology fascinating because every time that it works, it's kind of mind-boggling that you can see influences from glyphs on a piece of paper or by looking in the sky to get a sense of what a person's experiences might be or who a person might be by looking at their birth chart. But there's a real drawback with astrology, and that is when we take astrology and we try to have it take the place of our own divinely given free will. Because the universe is not a mechanism, it's not a machine, it's not a program where you simply rearrange a few variables and you can automatically predict exactly what's going to happen next. The universe, God, divine consciousness, whatever you want to call it, yourself, is an ongoing conversation. And there are forces in play from our own will, from the will of other people around us, from the will of a mind much bigger than ours, a cosmic mind or quantum mind, if you want to think about it that way. And everything is shaped based on our perceptions, our directions, and our intentions. Now, it's true that some things are more fixed, in the same way that it's highly unlikely that my skin is going to turn purple in the next 10 years. Why? Because the genetics I have, the way the body works, I'm probably going to be a Caucasian male that's able to get a decent tan whenever I go out in the sun for the duration of my life. That is an extremely fixed karma. And I am being a little facetious here, but I think you get the point. Aspects of your personality are fixed in the sense that they're really hard to change. And I remember watching that 70s show, if you've ever seen that 70s show. It's a comedy, what was it, early 2000s. And there was a line in one of those shows from one of the guest actresses who said, you know what, there's nothing wrong, she was saying this to another actor, there's nothing wrong with you that changing yourself completely couldn't fix. There's nothing wrong with you that changing yourself completely couldn't fix. And so if we think about astrology, the birth chart is a snapshot of your karmas, the accumulation of them up until the moment the moment that you're born. And those can be extremely fixed within the chart, so long as you continue to identify with what those karmas indicate. And in order to experience different things, better relationships, greater wealth, better health, we oftentimes have to go in and change our belief systems. We have to become involved in transformational processes like meditation and prayer and yoga practice to reinvent ourselves or to find the core of ourself. And oftentimes that requires that we are able to listen to and feel and experience our heart, our inner guidance system, which is there. All of us have it. The trouble is, most of us can't hear it. And in astrology, this is related to Venus and the moon. This is why Venus and the moon only get a certain kind of strength in the 4th house. It's rare that they're going to show up in that 4th house. It'll happen, but for most of the people, it's not something that occurs often in a birth chart. And it is the moon and Venus which allow us to listen to our heart and to direct our life in a way that leads to higher fulfillment. So what does that tell us? That as human beings, one of the hardest things we have to do is learn to listen to our heart. But that doesn't mean we don't listen to our heart. That means we have to learn how to do it in the same way that no matter what you want to accomplish in life, it requires that you put in the hard work. So one of the things I want to encourage you to do, because I get a lot of questions about this, and in fact, one of my apprentices recently brought this up with me. She asked me a question about a prediction I made for her, And I said, look, this is just generally what's going to happen if you let everything be on autopilot. But she wanted to make changes sooner. I said, if you want to make changes sooner, pray upon it. Listen to your heart and follow that guidance. And if you fail, well, you failed trying. But the only way you change is by trying new things, which usually requires failing in the beginning. Not always. Sometimes you just pick things up like that. And she wrote back and she said, well, I just wanted to understand as an astrology student, when is the best time to undertake this particular thing? And I said, well, as an astrology teacher, I have to tell you that you need to learn to start encouraging people to listen to themselves, to use the astrological influences as general trends, but not to define yourself through them, especially if you're in a bad situation where you're suffering. I mean, you would not believe how many questions I get about, should I leave my spouse because they're abusive, because they treat me this way, because they do these certain things. And when I get that, I don't need any astrology to tell me, should you leave your spouse? If you have any self-respect whatsoever, you need to find a way to do that. And I understand that when it comes to things like abusive relationships, you first have to find the support systems so that you're not going at it alone, because that can be dangerous. But again, that's going to be the same with anything. No matter what you want to do, in a direction you want to go, you can go in that direction. Even if your birth chart doesn't say, it's not stamped on your forehead that this is your fate. Your fate is the accumulation of your choices and your thoughts. And so the reason I was interested in yoga and meditation first, the reason I have a whole other channel called youtube.com/Kriya Yoga Online, specific to meditation techniques, is because it's more important for you to learn to quiet your mind, to go within, to direct yourself through your spirit, through your soul, in combination with this quantum mind, this divine energy, this divine essence, and treat it like a conversation, a planning session, where you might contemplate moving in a certain direction. And you have an inner sense of, yes, that is true, that is right. But everything external to you says, no, don't do it. Well, the clearer you get through meditation, through yoga, which can take a while, the easier it is for you to know that by following that guidance, you will get to where you need to be, and that you need to stop listening to these external inputs, because they are not what is important. They might make you think that they're important, but otherwise, if you're doing that, you're just giving away your power to them, and then you stay exactly in the situation that you are in, and you never make any positive changes. So by developing your heart, by listening to your heart, by giving your attention to your inner guidance system, you can use astrology generally, which I think is what it's meant to be used for. In the same way that if I'm going to plan a picnic, I'm going to look at the Weather Channel and see, is it going to rain on Saturday? Maybe I really want to have that picnic. So instead of having it outside, I plan to have it indoors somewhere. So it's not a picnic, but it's still a party of sorts. So you can use astrology in these general ways. And if you do, that's wonderful, that's fine. But if you continue to use astrology to define your life, without really listening to your heart, you are lessening and lessening that divine presence that you are meant to be, that you are meant to manifest. Astrology is not the end-all be-all of everything. Neither is anyone who predicts anything, whether it's finances, your health, relationships. There is something greater than all these external influences that comes from the soul, that comes from the heart. And the more that we can turn within and feel that and hear that, and again, oftentimes that's developed through meditation, or more specifically, prayer, learning how to pray. Then you start to guide your life in a divine fashion, which is not based on superstition, which is not based on remaining bound to limitations. Now again, we have to remember that we have to work within the realm of what we might consider to be cosmic laws. For example, I have this book called You Are Your Own Gym, which is all about bodyweight exercises. And it was written by a fellow who was in the Special Forces, the U.S. Special Forces. And he says, forget about all those gimmicks, all those gadgets where you see people smiling on TV and they're not breaking a sweat at all, and they've got abs like you would not believe, abdominal muscles, those six packs that people seem to think are wonderful. He says that's not how it works. You have to work hard to get a strong, fit, healthy body. And he says, and if you think that you're going to become like some of those bodybuilders with giant muscles, he says all those people are on steroids. He says it's not going to happen. So you have to be realistic about it. But hard work is involved, even spiritually speaking, to learn to hear your heart. If you don't know how to do it, you're going to make a lot of mistakes listening. But the more you listen, the better you understand the better you're able to have that conversation with the universe, the rest of yourself. In the same way that when you're learning a new language, you might say all kinds of dumb stuff to the person who knows Spanish or Portuguese or whatever it might be you're trying to learn. But they laugh and you feel bad, but then they correct you and you learn how to speak the language, and in time you become fluent at it. It's the same way with listening to your heart. There is the saying that if you follow your bliss, money will follow. No, it might. If you follow your bliss, you will usually find bliss. If you learn to live in joy, you will learn to be in joy. All these other things like money and having fancy cars, whatever it is you want to define yourself through, they may or may not come. The focus is on learning to hear your heart and learn what is going to actually bring you bliss and joy. That may be that you are in an abusive relationship and you have to leave your partner. It may be you're in a boring relationship and there's nothing really wrong, but you just have this strong drive that it's time to move on. Follow your heart. See what happens. Now, of course, there's a disclaimer that you need to keep following your heart until you get where you need to be. Don't just follow it 3 steps and then say, it didn't work, and throw up your hands. You have to keep following it. If your health needs corrected or worked on, meditate, pray deeply until you have a sense of assurance, certainty about a direction you're supposed to go in. Don't make any movements until you do. But once you have that sense of certainty and assurance, move in that direction. And if you come up again to some more doubt, you don't know what to do, turn in, do it again until you have that certainty and assurance. This idea of following your heart is like taking one step in front of the other. And it may be you take a step and you don't know where to go. But again, you turn back into your heart. You listen until you're guided once more. And this might seem painfully slow, and it is in the beginning. But the more you attend to it, the more you listen and act upon your heart, you don't get discouraged when failure arises. You will start to find that you don't have to just walk 1 step and 2 steps and then take a step back and then keep moving forward. Eventually, you know how to run. You know how to dance listening to your heart. You don't have to take time to do all the specific prayers or meditations to get in a clear state. It just happens naturally, and that's really what we're meant to be doing. And then astrology will be much better for you, because when an astrologer talks to you, if you're listening to your heart, you will know what is accurate for you. You will know what is not accurate for you. And then you can have an authentic conversation with your astrologer and really refine the information that you get. So you need to listen to your heart more than astrology. That's going to take effort. That's going to take time. That's going to take years. It's something I still struggle with. But it's something that I have intently worked upon for many, many years, until now, to this point, I can close my eyes and within minutes have an understanding of what direction to go or what to do or what the right situation might be to start. Whereas before, it might have taken me days to meditate and pray about these things. And ideally, what's going to happen is it'll become second by second, where I just think about it, and then the information is there. And that is really the goal. That is really what we're aiming to do here on this planet Earth, is to learn to get so in tune with our heart, so in tune with our inner consciousness, that we understand how to move forward if we want to change our direction. We know how to be patient if we don't understand everything or if it doesn't make sense. We learn to sit until the clarity dawns and we know which way to go. And again, astrology can be a good supplemental tool for this. And for those people who cannot hear their heart at all, astrology is wonderful. But as an astrologer, I want to encourage people, even if they don't think they can hear it at all, the only way you learn to hear it is by trying, is to start some kind of process, some kind of engagement in your life to where you try to move in a direction. You don't worry about astrology so much. And you learn to trust yourself. You learn to trust in inner guidance within this consciousness. You learn to believe that when you're given assurance about a direction to move in, that even if steps 3 and 4 of the 10 seem like they're horrible steps, you know that if you keep going, when you get to steps 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, then you start to see the beauty of it. So this is the tricky thing, and it seems like we might need to do a little more work and talk, have conversations on these sorts of things, because it's easy to talk about in a 15-minute video. So that said, that gives me an idea. Maybe this fall, try to do some weekend webinars on this. So I think that's a good idea. So find me on Facebook, Ryan Kurzak. I've got my fictional character page. Also Asheville Vedic Astrology, Asheville Vedic Astrology on Facebook. That's probably where I will update these things and announce if we do some of these webinars. But it might take me a little while to contemplate how to put this into a process that's so you understand what's involved, the actual work that's involved, but that allows you to tap into the capacity through prayer and through meditation to learn to listen to your heart more than anything else, because that's always going to be with you, no matter what realm you live in, no matter what planet you're on, no matter what galaxy or solar system you're in, that heart will always be there, any realm. So that's more important than anything else. Anything else. And I hope you take that to heart and start considering, wondering, contemplating, what do you need to do to listen more to that inner clarity, how to find that inner clarity, how to develop that inner clarity within yourself, how to trust yourself in that regard. So start thinking about this over the next few weeks or months, and ideally I will aim to try to put something together for the fall. But if you follow those Facebook pages, I'll put the announcements there. Don't spend too much time on Facebook. I wouldn't use Facebook if I didn't need some way to get in touch with you all, because it can be really distracting. But those of you who've taken other classes with me have heard me go on and on about that. So use it for information, but don't waste your day on it, because that's one of the things that keeps you from hearing your heart. Being distracted by media, being distracted by what everyone else thinks, what everyone else is doing, comparing yourself and so on. You gotta knock that off. It's not helpful for you. So learn to spend time quietly alone, reflecting, listening to your heart, and then having the courage, because that's what it takes. It takes a lot of courage. Having the bravery to act upon what you know to be true for you through to the end. Not just take a few steps, but go all the way to the end. This is very important. It can lead you to a great state of peace and even harmony with yourself and people around you. Even harmony with the planets. So that's the goal. All right. Well, thank you. And thank you to the astrological apprentice who brought this up, encouraging me to discuss this topic with you. Peace.